A new residential subdivision, a deck overlooking the lake, a shed or pool in your backyard. All great projects, and all may need permits from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers before being built. The Corps of Engineers, in coordination with other state and federal agencies, is responsible for protecting the nation's aquatic environment, including wetlands. These areas are referred to by the Corps as waters of the U.S. When you apply for a permit, you can use the Corps' federal permit application form. However, some local Corps offices, such as the Portland District in Oregon, have developed joint permit application forms which you can fill out and send to both the Corps and the state. Each agency will review the application form and make its own permit decision. Our website lists all of the items you need to submit to ensure your application is complete. In this video, we will focus on 4 items applicants often have difficulty with. These include the alternative analysis, the project description, the project drawings, and additional information. The key to any successful project is its design. You can make the permitting process easier by first taking the time to consider how your project will impact waters of the U.S., and then find ways to avoid, minimize, or compensate for those impacts. The design stage is the best time to identify alternatives in order to avoid or minimize impacts to waters of the U.S., while still meeting your project's purpose. The first step is to determine if the waters within the project area can be avoided. For example, could you build a small bridge over a stream instead of using a culvert? The goal should be to reduce the impact on the aquatic resource as much as possible. If your project purpose is not water dependent, the Corps will require you to consider options that will not involve impacting waters of the U.S. If a project cannot avoid impacting waters, the second step is to identify how to minimize the impacts. This could be done through a smaller project design or footprint, or by selecting a different location. For example, consider constructing a second story on a building instead of building a larger foundation. We need to know the alternatives you've considered, identify which one is preferred, and explain why the other alternatives were not chosen. Project impacts can also be minimized through construction techniques, erosion controls, and time of year. Finally, if a project has unavoidable impacts, you may be required to compensate for them through mitigation. Mitigation can take many forms, such as mitigation banks, in lieu fee programs, or permittee-responsible mitigation. If you have any questions regarding mitigation, contact your local Corps regulatory project manager. The project description helps the Corps define the overall project purpose and need. It also determines how the Corps will review your project. A detailed description should include the volumes and acreage of all removal and fill activities. For example, place 200 cubic yards of fill in the form of 2 to 3 inch rock into 1/10 acre of emergent wetland for the construction of a temporary access road. Any staging areas, access roads, or previously completed work, such as an excavator working from the top of the bank will place large woody debris and rock 18 inches in diameter along 150 feet of Alder Creek. The area of wetlands or waters to be impacted and where the impacts will occur. For instance, the bank stabilization area will be 150 linear feet along the stream bank. 3 feet will be below the ordinary high water mark and 2 feet above the ordinary high water mark. And if those impacts are permanent or temporary, you can say, after project completion, the temporary road fill will be removed, the area will be regraded to the original contour, and will be replanted with native plant species. We'll also need to know the best management practices or methods you plan to use during construction to prevent or reduce pollutants from entering the water, what time of year you plan to do the work, and the amount of time it will take to complete the project from start to finish. Project drawings illustrate where the project is located and the work you plan to do. These drawings should include location maps and site plans and may include cross-sectional or profile drawings. Location maps should clearly show where in the state the project is and where the project is in relation to nearby cities and local roads. U.S. Geological Survey topographical maps are very helpful. A site plan accurately shows the project boundaries, access areas, grading, and staging. Project plans must show the ordinary high water mark of any stream or the wetland boundaries of any wetlands within the project area. Drawings, sketches, or plans must be on 8.5 by 11-inch paper and clearly reproducible in black and white. The drawings don't need to be completed by an engineer, but they should be drawn to scale. If you're submitting multiple drawings, please give each drawing a name and date so we can reference them in the permit. It's helpful to put a north arrow on each plan. Remember, the drawings you submit must show all the work you will be doing or it will not be verified. The Corps may require a document that clearly defines the boundaries of any waters that might be affected. This is called a wetland delineation report. It includes all wetlands, streams, and other bodies of water in your project area. Completing a wetland delineation requires expertise and may require professional assistance. Contact your local Corps office for more information on wetland delineations. Before issuing a permit, the Corps must ensure we have fulfilled our obligations to Native American tribes and other federal and state agencies. These agencies include the National Marine Fisheries Service, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the State Historic Preservation Office, as well as state departments of fish and wildlife, environmental quality, and lands management. There are many federal and state laws that the Corps must abide by when issuing a permit. We'll touch briefly on the 3 laws that most often affect the Corps' permitting process: the Endangered Species Act, or ESA, the National Historic Preservation Act, and Section 401 of the Clean Water Act. Projects in and around water could impact fish, plants, or animals, some of them protected by the ESA. Your application will need to include the best information you have regarding the presence of any protected species. If you don't know, your local project manager can help you determine what species are present and if your project will affect them. The Corps has an obligation under the National Historic Preservation Act to consider impacts to historic properties and cultural resources, including traditional cultural properties important to Native Americans, such as fishing platforms used by tribal members. Projects involving ground disturbance have the potential to affect cultural resources, and you may be required to have a professional archaeologist conduct a cultural resource survey or have an archaeologist monitor the site during construction. Projects that involve putting material into water must be approved by the state under Section 401 of the Clean Water Act. The Corps can help facilitate the 401 review process, but it is your responsibility to send your project information to the state for its review. It's important that you work closely with the Corps to gather the information required by other agencies. Be aware this process could take a few weeks to several months. Each project is unique, and information required for one project may not be necessary for another project. The easiest way to ensure your project complies with state and federal agency requirements is to find out what they are when you're planning your project and incorporate design elements that minimize environmental impact. This often expedites the permitting process. If you would like to set up a pre-application meeting during the planning of your project, contact your local Corps Regulatory Project Manager. Our website contains detailed information which will help you submit a complete application package. Although the federal permit application form can be used, your state may have a joint permit application. If you have any questions during planning your project or during the permitting process, please contact your local Corps Regulatory Project Manager. By working together, we can complete your permit application in a timely manner, and you'll do your part in helping protect our vital aquatic resources.